Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to a new session, which is part of a one-week conference named Building Lifelong Learning Systems, Skills for Green and Inclusive Societies in the Digital Era, which is organized by the European Training Foundation and UNESCO with the collaboration of the ILO, the EBRD and UNICEF. This afternoon is a very special afternoon because today's session is about discussing new forms of learning. And the point of today will be discussing about meaningful and engaging learning environments, which is actually something which is touching all of us in this very special phase which we are living in. Just a brief introduction of the next few hours, which we will be spending together. Before we will present some examples of good practices, which will be followed by a discussion in which we will discuss about enablers and challenges. And at the end of the panel discussion, we will split into breakout groups and discuss further. And those of you who are following on Zoom will also be able and have the opportunity to share their views. So hello to all of you on Zoom. Thank you for being with us. Keep your cameras on because you will have the opportunity to interact with us. And don't forget to type in comments, questions, say hello in the chat. And hello also to all of you who are following on the social media platforms of the European Training Foundation, namely LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. Also, your comments and questions will be addressed to the speakers later on. So please keep on sending your contributions in the chat, and I thank my colleagues. My name is Daria Santucci. I am from the European Training Foundation, and I'm here to help the moderation of this session, which is coordinated by my colleague, Jolien van Uden. Hello, Jolien.
Hi.
And thank you for being with us. But now let's break the ice right away with a question which I am addressing to all of you. So you will see in the chat a link to Mentimeter. I kindly ask you to click on that link, and I have a question for you, which is, when did you have your last learning experience? Was it today? Was it last week? Was it last month? Was it last year? Or was it even more than a year ago? So please start by filling your question, fill the form with your answers, and I give the floor to my colleague Jolien to comment on that, and I'll be back with you later. So Jolien, over to you.
Thank you, Daria, and welcome everyone. Let's just see, like the answers are coming in. I see many of you learned something today. Maybe you followed one of our previous sessions, or maybe you had a problem to solve today. Others, like I see most of you learned something at least last week or during last year. So very good to see that. Yes, we see that most of you learned something today, and I think we all perceive ourselves as lifelong learners. I guess most of us here today had a positive learning experience, at least positive enough to keep developing and to reach our current position. Showing by your attendance today, you're still interested in learning more. The term lifelong learning doesn't make you anxious, angry, or uncertain. No, you see it as an opportunity. It can be easy to forget that this is not the case for everyone. Learners drop out. This can be due to personal circumstances, limited access, but the system itself pushes learners out as well. What if you had struggled with education? What if you had always been the person in class with the lowest grades? How would you have felt? And what if you had too much energy to just sit still and listen to a teacher? Or if you were too creative to give the expected answers to a test? If we want everyone to be a lifelong learner, we need to create positive learning experiences for all. If we have positive experiences, it's more likely that we will enroll in learning again and again. Lifelong learning shouldn't feel like a life sentence, but as life satisfaction. Over the past years, the way we teach and train people has been changing. The general assumption now is that the constructivist approach is more effective than lecturing and instruction alone. The Torino process shows us that ETF partner countries are modernizing their teaching and training systems by developing up-to-date qualifications and introducing competence-based education, modular curricula, and work-based learning. Still, lecturing continues to be the most frequently used learning activity, a useful method in its own right, but insufficiently engaging. What makes a meaningful and engaging learning environment? Is it the physical space, the learning content, the pedagogy, resources, or the interaction between the different actors in the environment? These are some of the questions we would like to invite you to engage with today. And not just today, even at this very moment. I would like to invite you to go back to Mentimeter. I think we will share the link again in the chat, and to leave your answer to the question, what makes a meaningful and engaging learning environment? So I think you can leave 3 options there. So I look forward to see what you think. What do you think makes a meaningful and engaging learning environment? And feel free as well to leave it in different languages, in Russian, French, or Arabic. I will not be able to read it immediately, but I will read it later. So I see some inputs coming. Looking forward to see more. We have interaction now as the big one. Many contributions. But it's wonderful to see all these contributions. I think we've got the answer to the question. So then why is it not always happening? We could think of several reasons. Strong links between education and the private sector and community might be missing. This could make it more difficult to create authentic learning environments. The lack of resources, time, budget could also create barriers to more meaningful and engaging learning environment. And constraints like the curriculum, timetables, availability of classrooms and workshops might stop teachers from creating more meaningful and engaging learning environments. The question is, are these constraints real, or is there actually space to innovate? Teachers and trainers do have a key role in creating meaningful and engaging learning environments. If they don't have the space to change their teaching practice, or if they don't want to, not much will happen. But even if they want to, it's not always easy. I think we all know, based on our own experiences, that it's not so easy to change behavior. On the other hand, we do see many examples where teachers create positive learning experiences for the learners. And finally, there could also be the question about the effectiveness and real benefits of these new forms of learning. How much evidence is really there that these new forms of learning work? At ETF, we have initiated the Creating New Learning initiative to find an answer to this question, and to find solutions that can boost innovation in teaching and learning in VET in different national contexts. Our last year's literature review showed that innovation in teaching and learning in VET is less researched than in general and higher education. Nonetheless, we were able to identify some promising trends and innovations. Personalized and differentiated learning, formative assessment or assessment as learning, digital and online learning, of course, and today's topic, meaningful and engaging learning environments. Learning environments become meaningful when they offer relevant content in authentic context. And they become engaging when they really invite learners to participate, to explore, to try new things, to make mistakes, to collaborate, and to take ownership of their own learning. The most authentic learning environment in VET is probably the workplace. And many countries introduced work-based learning. So how can we use the workplace as inspiration for what we can do at school or at the training institute? Today, we will learn from 3 innovative practices, and they will show different ways to make lifelong learning feel like life satisfaction and not as a life sentence. After they share their experiences, we'll have time together to discuss how we can create more meaningful and engaging learning environments, but also what we can do about the challenges we might find along the way. Because yes, there will be challenges, but inspiration and support are all around us. And I think with that, we can also move to the next session, because I believe that the cases we will present will show this. The next session is called like Inspiring Learning Environments. During this session, I would like to invite you to leave your questions in the chat, because after we present the 3 cases, we will have time to ask some questions. So I think we will not wait any longer, and we will go to the first case, the first innovative practice we would like to share with you, MyMachine. And I think it's a learning experience that really emphasizes the development of creativity, collaboration, STEM, and vocational skills. So I would say launch the video of MyMachine.
Our world is evolving all the time. Unexpected events on a local or global scale disrupt our lives. The 4th Industrial Revolution is giving us opportunities, yet is also attacking jobs. And an even much bigger wave is hitting our shores: climate change. Navigating through this ever-changing environment is challenging. More than ever before, we will have to rely on new ideas, new concepts, new answers. And these come from people who are confident to use their imagination, to think outside of silos, and to be inspired by the possibility to improve our society. This is not the privilege of a handful of intelligent, brave, and lucky women or men. All of us can do this, as long as we have had the possibility to learn this in a supporting ecosystem. This is where MyMachine brings an impactful solution. Our unique and multi-award-winning methodology unites all educational levels in 3 steps. Step 1. Children in primary schools invent their dream machine. Anything goes, as long as they really want it. Then, university students help them design a concept. And in step 3, technical or vocational secondary school students help build an actual working prototype. Primary school children inspire the older students with their creative powers and creative confidence that they still have within them. University students show that solutions come from looking for the right angle to a challenge. And the technical secondary students display their skills by improving the technical side of the design, ensuring the production of the working prototype is safe, smooth, effective, and within budget. While they work for months on bringing ideas to life, like the clean up my room machine or the homework making machine, they use mathematics and physics and all the other knowledge they need for this inspiring endeavor. And all students learn along the way that nothing comes easy. That bringing an idea to life means you will need to rely on teamwork, empathy, respect for each other's talents, and being persistent and resilient. While co-creating these dream machines is so much hard work, it is also so much fun. Can you imagine how much joy they find in creating a party dance machine, a massage machine, a chase away the bad ghost from under my bed machine, or a turning bunk bed, better known as the never have to discuss anymore who gets to sleep on top machine? We know that taking those dream machine ideas seriously means the world to all participating children. Wherever life takes them, Dance, engineering, plumbing, IT, fashion, law, filmmaking, management, community building, or space technology. One of the most instrumental skills to bring you happiness and to make you thrive is learning that you can bring any idea to life. No matter the scope of your vision, whether it's something personal, local, or global, making it happen starts with the creative confidence that your ideas matter, that your ideas can make a difference. That is how we will see a lot more of us doing a lot more to shape this better future we all need to design together.
I think this video always makes me smile and also start dreaming about my own dream machine. If you have any questions about MyMachine, leave them in the chat and we will come back to them later on. We will first look at the two other examples and then we will take time to address your questions. And our second example will show a different kind of learning environment. It's an example from the Ukraine where theater is used to address civic competences in adult education, the theater of contemporary dialogue. Please start the video.
The Theatre of Contemporary Dialogue is an initiative of the NGO Poltava branch of the Public Service of Ukraine, its Adult Education Center, and the former head of the Poltava Theatre Workshop Poltela, Garets Irina Anatolievna. The initiative uses theatre as a learning tool to promote the personal growth and development of civic competencies of the program participants. The training program consists of three components: training in civic competencies, training in contemporary art, training in theatrical skills and acting practices. During the training, special attention is paid to the role that contemporary art, and specifically theatre, can play in social and civic issues. The program ends with the creation of a performance by the trained participants. The acting classes not only develop acting skills, but also emotional intelligence and understanding of social processes. The script of each performance is based on documentary materials and real-life stories collected by the participants during the learning process. This process helps them to develop competencies such as critical thinking, media literacy, data analysis, and public speaking skills. The first program reflected on the realities of internally displaced residents of Crimea after its occupation. Following this success, 3 further projects were developed to address issues linked to anger crime, corruption, and people with disabilities. On the Disabilities project, accessibility issues for blind people in the city were assessed by the participants. Blind people were also invited to take part in the process. This training program offers a new approach to engaging adults in discussion about sensitive social issues, with evident added value compared to standard training courses and seminars. The learning experience isn't limited to the participants themselves. The live performance provides the audience with a safe space to reflect on specific issues. In addition, the open floor session at the end of each show encourages open debate between actors and spectators. With its innovative approach, the Theatre of Contemporary Dialogue is one of a kind in Ukraine and delivers excellent results as an alternative way of learning for all people involved.
I think this definitely shows the power of theatre. And I really like the idea that not only the participants are learners in this example, but also the audience, so reaching a wider number of learners. And I also wonder, will we be able to use this more often in education and training, also in other sectors, forms of education and training? And we will get back to this later. If you have questions, please leave them in the chat and we will answer them after the next example. when I started preparing this session, I thought that augmented reality was still not really a reality in education. But I proved to be wrong. I found several examples, and we will share one of these examples with you today, Soldamatic. So let's go to the example. Let's start the video.
Traditional welding training has always been linked to long studying hours, burn risks, numerous repetitions, emissions, and high costs. The trade has been stagnant for too long, and new technologies hold the key for a necessary change. It is time for the next step in welding training. Soldamatic is the first welding training solution powered with augmented reality in the world. The augmented reality technology overlaps information on the real world and uses real welding components to offer the closest to reality simulation experience. Thanks to this technology, trainees can develop manual skills and muscle memory, enhancing their learning process. Soldamatic applies gamification to improve the motivation of trainees, personalised learning to adapt to their personal needs, specific guidance and immediate feedback during the exercise, and green-safe technology to reduce the risks for newcomers and pollution. However, Soldamatic is not just a welding simulator. It offers a whole new learning experience, the augmented training methodology, which can be used in combination with face-to-face learning and real practice. This new educational paradigm combines augmented reality simulation with theory and tests, and provides instructors with all the tools necessary to monitor the students individually, providing very detailed feedback on not only the final product, but even more importantly, the process itself. The result, it will attract the new generation of young people to welding, train them better, faster, safer, and reducing costs. Bring a non-qualified resource to a certification level of welding experience. Soldamatic, using augmented reality to create a meaningful and engaging learning experience.
I believe that the additional support and the immediate feedback augmented reality offers can really support the learning process. And I think we can all imagine how this can motivate learners. But now I'm curious about your questions. And to answer your questions, we will have with us Piet Grimont-Pré, co-founder and managing director of the MyMachine Global Foundation from Belgium. Anastasia Yakovenko, co-director of the Theatre of Modern Dialogue from the Ukraine, and Antonio Fernandez, EMEA Business Development Director of Seaberry in Spain. And Daria, I'm curious, do we have any questions?
Yes, indeed, Jolene, we do have questions for the three representatives of the three incredible stories which we have just shared. And before going to the questions, I'd like to flag that we have more than 40 people following on Facebook, more than 15 on LinkedIn, more than 20 on YouTube. We're around 90 on Zoom. So in this very moment, we are around 160 people, and we're all discussing about new forms of learning. But let's go straight to the questions. The first one is for Piet. And it's indeed about the MyMachine project. How long does one full cycle take? How long do primary children have to develop their ideas, and how many ideas are then taken on? Do the different levels link up several times during the cycles? Actually, it's three questions in one. Piet, maybe in a few minutes so we can give the floor also to the other speakers. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for the great question. Typically, a MyMachine cycle, as we call it, going from idea to concept work and prototype, is something that happens during one school year. In some countries, it might take 4 or 5 months. Typically 6, I would say, probably 6 months. A 6 months process, and this is also something which is interesting to understand, that young people also learn through this long process that not everything comes just like that. You know, it's sometimes going from idea to a working prototype actually does take a lot of time and does take a lot of effort and does take a lot of you know, trying to get things right, making mistakes, and then trying to learn from the mistakes that you make. So it's a lengthy process that where we go in depth. It's an in-depth collaboration of all educational levels, primary, secondary, and higher education, collaborating as peers. And so typically it starts, going to the second question, typically it starts, of course, in the primary class, where the ideation process, young children thinking about their dream machine, anything goes as long as they really want it. That is typically the quickest phase. It's typically, let's say, half a day or 1 day in the class. After that, the university students start conceptualizing, which is typically, I would say, 1 to 2 months. And then in step number 3, technical, vocational, secondary level schools produce a working prototype. And that takes the longest of time, of course. So typically that would be 3 to 4 months of work with the students. And of course, going to your third question, it is all of that process is in collaboration. So it's those 3 steps are not divided. There's typically lots of moments where all of those different levels of education come together to discuss progress, to discuss options of the actual building of the prototype.
Thank you very much, Piotr, also for having brought the concept of the creative confidence, which is indeed very insightful. There are some more questions, actually several more. The next one I'd like to address to Anastasia. Our participants are asking, could we use theater to explore work challenges? And commenting on the fact that learning in the theater, it's lovely. Another participant is asking, do participants receive a kind of certificate? Anastasia.
Nice to hear you today. I would like to say hi, everyone. And in terms of the first question, theater can explore every topic which you want, because the documentary performs allow people to discover everything they can find in their daily life, and it's great possibility to discover every topic which you want, which is especially meaning for you. And in terms of certificate, we usually don't give it to participants because they just get a lot of experience and emotions during the process, and that motivates them better than any certificate. But of course, the theater can get some certificates when they participate in any festivals. Because usually when we create a perform, we try to show as much as possible, and we visit some festivals around all the country.
Thank you very much, Anastasia, also for having brought to this conversation in which we're discussing about new forms of learning, the fact that sometimes we think that new means digital, while in this case, theater can be also a new way of delivering learning. And actually, I saw that there was a comment from someone saying, this is a sort of a back to the future feeling. It gives a back to the future feeling. Some more questions for Antonio this time. I guess a follower says, a participant says, I guess this AR is very expensive. It's an impressive way of learning. Is it expensive?
Thank you for the question, Daria. And that is a very good question. And of course, also very, very difficult to answer, right? Expensive, to be honest, it is not expensive. Because actually welding training, welding itself is quite expensive and inefficient. So the amount of money that you spend in materials, consumables, steel, gases, and so on is incredible in the schools, right? And that is actually why this technology can help, because then you don't need to invest huge amounts of money every time, and your students can really train with proper tools and with a proper amount of time, right? So when you compare it with the amount of money that they spend in a traditional workshop every single year, we can tell you that they can save between 50–60% of those costs, yeah? And just for everyone to have, and in order to have a more complete answer, this technology costs from 10,000 euros, okay? So that will be the starting point. It can go to different levels, okay, depending on on the configurations, versions, and all of that. But just to have a reference, you can use that.
Thank you very much, Antonio, also because indeed when we are talking about being inspirational, then we also have to talk about the concrete challenges. No enablers and challenges will be the next phase of this conversation. But we still have a few minutes to go. So I'd like to follow up again with you, Antonio, because there are some more questions for you. How does reality simulation in the welding training simulate welding fumes? And then a second one, what should a vocational education and training school do to embed Soldamatic in their welding training provision?
Perfect.
Doing once.
So regarding the welding fume simulation, the visuals and the sounds are actually simulated from real experiences in a workshop. That means that those fumes, you're going to be able to use to see them, and that's important. You need to see them because that is also part of the art of welding. But the good thing is that you will not suffer from those fumes. Fumes are actually dangerous. You need to have a proper ventilation. You need to have proper equipment to be welding because of the fumes. Yeah. And in this case, you are not really breathing those fumes when you are using augmented reality. That means that it's very, very safe. And also, even more important, very green. Okay. In today's environment where we are, we need to look after our environment. So this is a very good way to lower the emissions that we give to our earth, right? But nonetheless, we can see those fumes and we can use them. We can simulate those fumes for the practice of welding so that you can learn how to work according to the experience with the fumes, okay?
Thank you so much. And on the follow-up on how could a school actually embed Soldamatic in their trainings?
So the actual easy answer will be, Daria, to acquire simulators, okay? However, it's not the answer that we are going to give. The answer that we're going to give is, first of all, to make a self-assessment of the actual training program that they have in place today. What are they doing in the workshop? If they are using a training program from a third party, from themselves, what kind of sectors they are working on, and start mentalizing themselves about digitalization. Digitalization is not only computers. This is also digitalization. And also it's quite important to remember that the proposal is not to digitalize fully the welding training. A very, very important part of welding training happens in the real workshop, okay? So it's quite important to keep in mind that there needs to be a smooth transition between this augmented reality environment or simulation environment with the real workshop. So our recommendation will be to get in touch with an expert, a local expert. We actually have many local experts everywhere. And if you don't find one, feel free to contact us. We will be very happy to help you with that assessment and to give you recommendations on how to approach this problem.
Thank you very much, Antonio. And indeed, also the European Training Foundation is always there to facilitate contacts. I've seen that there are many comments asking for more info about each of these super interesting stories. And I definitely invite you all to go on the website of this event, www.etf.europa.eu/skills4change. And we'll upload the links to these 3 stories so that you can access more details. 2 more minutes before we go to another Mentimeter question where all of you will be able to share your insights, but there is a comment addressing both Piet and Anastasia. So what is the scale of both of the theater project and of the MyMachine projects? How many learners do you reach? Ladies first, Anastasia, and then we close with Piet.
Thanks for the question, but actually I don't know how much learns, but approximately there are 30 participants on one project, and we realized 5 in our town, and also we've done in different parts of Ukraine more than 6 projects, but it's in terms of participants. But if we are talking about the purest of the performance, I can't say how many participants was there, because I think only one watch usually 100 or 200 years.
Thank you very much. Piet, in your case.
Well, in our case, I'd like to explain that we have two levels of things that we do. One is that we grow our model into different countries, setting up social franchise partnerships. And you will hear Sophia later on in the session explaining how MyMachine works in Slovakia. So we are now operating in 9 countries, including South Africa, including Spain, Portugal, and so on. And our partners then set up this local partnership of primary, secondary, and higher education in that specific country or area. And then the second thing we do is we also have a global connection, and we call that MyMachine Dreams Drop, is a global reach to educators around the world. And in that global reach, we are active in 21 countries in this year. And so in total, this means that we are counting more what we call student hours of creativity. So how many student hours of creativity and everything, 21st century skills of authentic learning that we're bringing. And on that level, we have reached about 750,000 hours, student hours of educating that we're doing.
Thank you very much, Piet. This is very interesting, and I have to admit that I think many youngsters will be very interested in knowing more about the homework making machine, because that's been, I think, the dream of all of us while we were students. So thanks a million to the three of you for having taken on board the questions which we've received. I have to admit we haven't answered them all, but we'll find a way also to facilitate contacts between you and all those who are wishing to know more. But now I kindly ask all of you on Zoom, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, please click on the Mentimeter link, which is being shared by my colleagues in the chat. And we'd like to know what your opinion is. So could you rank the practices we have just seen from the easiest to the most difficult to implement in your context or country? I remind you which are these 3 practices: MyMachine, Theater of Contemporary Dialogue, and Soldamatic or Augmented Reality in general. I see that 7 people had answered so far. Please keep on expressing your opinions. What's the hardest and what's the easiest according to the place where you are? 9. I see that for the moment, the easiest seems theater and the most difficult seems augmented reality. But my colleague, Jolien van Uden, who's sitting just nearby, will discuss these results with you and open up to the next part of this conversation. So over to you, Jolien.
Thank you, Daria. I think it's interesting to see this ranking, and also a good introduction to the next session, where we will discuss enablers and challenges we might face if we want to introduce new learning environments, meaningful and engaging learning environments. I see here that we still, like, the general answer is like, okay, probably Theater of Contemporary Dialogue is most easiest to implement. Then MyMachine, and then all the Soldamatic or Augmented Reality, which is still, they're quite close to each other. I think it will be interesting to discuss with our panelists what are the challenges they faced implementing the practices and starting and creating the practices, and what were the enablers. And for this discussion, we have with us, and it's a pleasure to have them here today. For MyMachine, we have Sofia Teplička, and she's program coordinator of MyMachine in Slovakia. And she's from the Carpathian Foundation. I hope I pronounced it correctly, but please correct me later if I was wrong. Then again, we have for the Theater of Contemporary Dialogue, Anastasia Yakovenko, co-director of the Theater of Modern Dialogue, and she will explain a bit more about what enabled them to start this initiative. And for Soldamatic, we have Mohamed Beleh, and he's the director of a training center in Tunisia, CFMA Nabeul. And it will be interesting also to hear what drove it, like, to start this, to implement Soldamatic, to start implementing Soldamatic at his training center. And I think I will start with a question for Sophia. on MyMachine, because MyMachine started in Belgium, but the concept has now been introduced in several countries, as mentioned by Pete before. And one of these countries is Slovakia. And it's always interesting to see, like, if you start a new concept in a different context, how does it work? Sophia, could you share with us a challenge you had to overcome to start MyMachine in Slovakia, and also what helped you or what enabled you to implement MyMachine?
Thank you, and hi everyone. What enabled us to start MyMachine in Slovakia was actually a combination of a favorable situation in our country and also a few factors on the side of Carpathian Foundation. We started MyMachine in Slovakia in 2016, and at that time, we in Slovakia all felt the education system needs fundamental change. We were lacking the educational reform for 25 years, so there was an accepting environment for change and new programs. What also helped us a lot was that we had resources from a donor who just wanted to invest them into education. So this was also very important to start MyMachine in Slovakia. The second important thing was that we needed partners and on the level of implementing MyMachine, schools on all levels, as Pete already mentioned. So in this case, it helped us a lot that Carpathian Foundation was already well established in the region of Eastern Slovakia, where we started MyMachine. We were already operating for 20 years at that time, so we had many contacts on the relevant decision makers. Also, MyMachine Global Foundation helped us a lot because Pete came to Slovakia and was present at the first negotiations with the university partners and helped us to sell the idea to the university. With elementary schools, it was quite easy because they really loved the idea of MyMachine, and as we already mentioned, it's quite easy and very playful for them. And then probably the biggest challenge was to involve secondary level schools, because in Slovakia, we experienced this probably also elsewhere in the world, that the technical education except IT has lost its attractivity during the years, and there was not as many innovative teachers at that time. So we decided to choose for the first year the more innovative secondary vocational schools to be participating in MyMachine and to help us spread the word to other schools. But we also had to be careful not to show MyMachine as a program for only elite schools. So it was a process, but now we think we already have very passionate schools in the program.
Thank you, Sophia. It's really interesting to hear like what enabled you. I think many countries see education reforms, so it might be an opportunity for them as well to use MyMachine or similar practices, ideas to reform their education and training, resources, collaboration. I think with and you said like that was still a challenge because it lost some of its attractiveness. And I think with MyMachine or similar examples, you could also bring back some attractiveness to the system. And I think it's something that many countries will recognize as well, that the attractiveness, that we can still do something about the attractiveness. Thank you. With the next question, I would like to go to Anastasia. So we go back to the Theatre of Contemporary Dialogue. And what if another adult learning training center somewhere else in the world would like to start a similar initiative? What conditions will help them to start such an initiative? So again, like what enables you? And also, were there any challenges they should take into account?
First of all, they need to come up with the idea of what topics they want to discover with the people in non-traditional way, and why is it important for the organization who decided to do it, and also for community, because they are going to work with the people. And then when you clearly understand your idea, it is necessary to find a team. A team is the most important when you are going to work with the people. And you need to find a director and a playwright and maybe psychologist, because sometimes it can be a bit difficult to discover some social issues with people who might have some problems and they want to share it with the people. And also, we don't need to forget about organization team, because it is better when you have a manager who can solve all the logistical problems and etc. And also, we don't need to forget about peer manager and designer, because a well-developed PR strategy can help to find participants firstly for the project, and then to find the viewers for the perform, because sometimes theater can make a great perform, a great play, but they can't find the viewers for them. But it is an interesting work in collaboration with many peoples, and also we need to don't forget about the challenges which can have in this initiative. First of all, we work with the people who are volunteering in this project, and we don't need to forget about their personal deals, their work, their education, and we need to keep the balance of their working in theater and their free time and their working deals. It is very necessary that everyone enjoys the process and have free time for enjoyment. So if you want to start this practice, it is necessary to find a great team, because the documentary performance and like traditional, it have many differences. And it is great when director also have the experience in documentary perform and know how to work with participants who don't have a formal theatrical educational background, who just come to the project to share their personal opinions and who want to develop him or herself.
Thank you, Anastasia. I really hear you emphasize teamwork. You need to have motivated people. Need people with different competences, either to create, like, to support the performance, to train the people, like more on the theatrical skills, but also people who do the logistics to ensure that you reach the right people, that you get your participants. So teamwork, I hear, is a key enabler in your practice. And I think from this one, I would like to move to Mohammed, to Soldamatic. And as I mentioned before already, like I thought, and we heard it also maybe a bit from the questions, that it would still take a while before augmented reality would be affordable in the classroom. We had the question about finances. And I'm interested, like, what made you decide to start using augmented reality in your school, in your training center? And what helped you to implement Soldamatic in your training center?
Ok, d'accord. Depuis les années 2010, si vous m'entendez, s'il vous plaît. D'accord. Alors, depuis 2008-2009, il y avait une démarche au niveau de la TFP pour restructurer et moderniser le centre de formation de Menzel Bourguiba, un centre dédié au soudage et construction métallique. Et c'était aussi un projet de la création d'un autre centre au sud tunisien, dédié aussi au soudage et la construction métallique. Lors de l'étude de ces projets-là, nous avons cherché à innover sur le plan matériel et sur le plan moyens et ressources pédagogiques. Comme vous savez très bien, la formation en soudage est un peu coûteuse et onéreuse, puis après, c'est plus ou moins difficile. Donc, il a fallu, dans cette restructuration ou la création d'un autre nouveau centre, de chercher d'autres moyens pédagogiques pour attirer les apprenants et faciliter la tâche de la formation en soudage spécialement. Et pour cette raison-là, avec l'Association française de développement, qui est le bailleur de fonds, et avec nos partenaires sociaux, entre autres la Fédération de la mécanique, nous étions d'accord à introduire la simulation de soudage. C'était une expérience aussi en Tunisie menée par le CETIM, le Centre technique en industrie mécanique et électrique de la Tunisie, et il a introduit ce simulateur de soudage-là, et c'est apparu que c'est un moyen vraiment pédagogique d'apprentissage excellent et qui permet de réduire le coût de la formation, qui permet d'améliorer la qualité de la formation et qui permet d'améliorer aussi les taux d'encadrement proprement dit, c'est d'avoir un formateur individuel pour chaque apprenant. C'était dans ce cadre-là, donc nous avons lancé un appel d'offres en 2012 et Soldamatic a répondu comme tout fournisseur dans la matière. Nous avions plusieurs déjà offres, mais l'offre la moins disante et l'offre qui a répondu techniquement et financièrement sur nos besoins, c'était Soldamatic, qui s'est introduit avec 10 simulateurs en soudage en l'année 2013. D'accord. Là, à l'arrivée de ces 10 simulateurs, donc, il y avait une action de formation de formateurs menée par un expert de Soldamatic et d'autres participants tunisiens. Ils ont formé nos formateurs à l'utilisation de ces simulateurs et à rationaliser ce matériel-là et l'orienter vers la formation. Et depuis 2013, je pense que c'est jusqu'à ce jour, parce que j'ai quitté le centre de Manzal Bourguiba depuis 2017, donc nous avons été convaincus que ce simulateur-là nous a vraiment réduit le coût de la formation sur le plan matière d'œuvre, sur le plan accessoires, outillage et consommables, et elle a très bien motivé plutôt les apprenants, et elle a facilité beaucoup plus l'apprentissage de gestuels en soudage. D'accord. Après Manzal Bourguiba, c'était Mednine, et puis d'autres centres de formation qui sont actuellement équipés par ce type de simulateur de soudage. Donc, c'était notre choix, c'était innover, améliorer l'apprentissage, les moyens d'apprentissage, et ça donnait de très bels résultats. Et c'était très bien apprécié à tous les niveaux, que ce soit en formation professionnelle ou bien pour les industriels qui veulent mener des actions de formation dans le cadre de la formation continue ou bien de la perfectionnement de ces techniciens et de ce cadre. Et puis, on a fait un grand tour en Tunisie. On a participé dans pas mal de séminaires, pas mal de foires et pas mal d'institutions d'enseignement secondaire et universitaire. Et tout le monde, on a apprécié cette méthode d'apprentissage de la réalité augmentée qui est beaucoup plus proche. Vraiment, elle est très proche, à 90%, je dis même, de la réalité. D'accord?
Thank you for your contribution. And I think you also already partly addressed my second question. But what I get from your reply is, I hear similar things. I heard the attractiveness of that, also to build upon a change, like starting a new school, seeing it as an opportunity to introduce new learning methodology. And really interesting that you also emphasize the benefits, like the reduced cost, but probably even more important, the motivation of learners and the better training you achieved. Thank you. I will go back to MyMachine, to Sophia, for a second question. You already mentioned like that VET was more of a challenge when starting MyMachine in Slovakia. And we are also specifically interested in the role of VET and VET students. MyMachine facilitates both the development of key competences and vocational competences. The students also, what was mentioned before, Piet explained the cycle, need some time to work on MyMachine. how is it integrated or linked to the normal curriculum? And what enabled you to integrate MyMachine in the regular VET curricula, if it was integrated?
Thank you for the question. It is also a process. When we started, and every time we start with a new school, they mostly use MyMachine as a project where they can teach students different competencies. And they involve it into the regular curriculum, into the practical part of the education. When they see a bigger opportunity in MyMachine, then they try to use, the schools try to use MyMachine also as a project for exams or even for graduation, as a practical showcase of their abilities. And this is what we really try to support. But MyMachine is always tailor-made for every participant, and this is also always depending on the decision of the school. And we still are trying to find ways together with schools how to involve MyMachine into the curriculum and how to use it for different assignments. And this works both for secondary level schools and also for university students. The third possibility is also to work with a business partner of MyMachine. We try to involve passionate, innovative companies into the process, not only as some kind of a mentors, but also within the dual system in Slovakia, where secondary level students can learn part of the week within the premises of a business partner. We try to build a partnership with this company so the students can do the MyMachine assignment under their leadership with their technologies and with this bigger team.
Thank you, Sophia, for sharing these three possibilities and also emphasizing that it's tailor-made. But I think it shows like the relevance, like to practice practical skills as well while we're doing our projects within MyMachine. And I think it's also interesting that you emphasize like the third one with business partners, showing the partnerships again, but also the possibilities of dual education. From MyMachine, I move again to the Theatre of Contemporary Dialogue. And I think what we've seen now, the current participants in the program are mainly like university students and activists. Also, you told me like you have been a participant before, and now you're fully involved in the program as a co-director. But I'm also interested to see like, could we use this as well to reach out to people who might have either a lower educational background or who are less likely to enroll in learning programs because they might have had negative experiences with learning before. And I think the use of theatre could be a totally different way of learning. And maybe we could use this to make learning more interesting for people who previously had negative experiences. And if so, what would we need to incorporate theatre in these kind of programs?
Let me start by saying that we implemented project not only with the students, but also with the adults. And I have two interesting ideas how to attract the attention of people who have negative experience in learning. First of all, that it is a new way for self-expression, and it doesn't matter how old are you. Everybody can participate in. I would like to share a wonderful example of it. There was one woman, she was an account manager, and she worked close to the other space where we provide other activities, and she was really interested in what we are doing there, why so loud, why they dancing and singing, and she asked if she can to participate in our project, and we said of course. and as a result, she was dancing on the table on the performance. So we need to say that it is a new wave of self-expression which is open for everyone, and it is really great to start something new when you 30, 40, 50 years old. It's a great possibilities. And the second way to attract attention of various people, the documentary theater is usually therapy. It helps people to analyze something that they cannot understand just when they are speaking about it or think. And also I would like to share one example. This woman, her son was a soldier in the war part of Ukraine, and he explains the story how it is to be a mother of a soldier and how is it difficult for her, and he couldn't explain the story without tears, but she understood how it is necessary to share this experience with other people in case to prevent the situation which we have now. And I think that this both way to share these wonderful possibilities for people can invite not only students but also everyone who had a bad experience, because usually when somebody heard about some learning, it looks a bit boring and etc. But theater allows people to think about discrimination or to dance about corruption, and in this way, these great possibilities to discover something new can attract attention of everyone, and doesn't matter what your personal background, because we try to involve people who don't have any professional skills in theater, and we are allowed to be themselves and to create something new and interesting for the people, and to expression is the most interesting part of our projects.
Thank you, Anastasia. I think you show that it's a form that can be used for all people of all ages and all backgrounds. It's useful to address topics that might be difficult to discuss and to develop your self-expression. Thank you very much for these contributions. And I will go to the last question, again to Soldamatic. Mohammed, you already shared that you prepared the teachers, that you trained the teachers to be able to use this new form of learning. Were there specific things you had to do in the program to adapt the program to be able to integrate Soldamatic? Because I assume there was already like a national curriculum or qualifications which you met. Like, what did you need to do to integrate the Soldamatic in the curriculum?
Donc, après la formation des formateurs et l'introduction de ces types de matériel pédagogique, disons, de réalité augmentée, vous savez très bien que Soldamatic a conçu quand même une plateforme d'apprentissage qui est très proche de la réalité et des programmes de formation un peu partout dans le monde. Donc, c'est les exercices d'apprentissage, ou les exercices, ou bien les différents types de positions, les différents types de joints, les différents types d'exercices en soudage, que ce soit dans notre programme de formation ou qui a été livré par Soldamatic, sont pratiquement les mêmes. Mais on a laissé quand même la liberté et les soins pour nos formateurs d'introduire quelques séances, d'accord, petit à petit aux apprenants dans le cursus de la formation. C'est-à-dire que pour 8 heures de soudage, notre première expérience, on a laissé les soins aux formateurs de passer tous les stagiaires ou les apprenants au laboratoire de simulation de soudage ou bien au laboratoire de soudage virtuel, ou bien un petit moment, 1 heure à 2 heures en soudage virtuel, et puis après, pour chaque position de soudage, en soudage réel, en atelier de soudage. Là, ça nous a... C'est pratiquement beaucoup de liberté pour le formateur, pour s'améliorer, s'adapter à ces modes d'apprentissage. D'accord? Ça donnait dans les premières expériences aussi une bonne pratique, une bonne expérience quand même. Ça nous a permis de voir de près la progression et l'évolution de l'apprentissage pour chaque individu. D'accord? Donc, on n'a pas imposé aux formateurs un emploi du temps spécifique pour le soudage de la réalité augmentée. Ça n'a pas changé ou bien ça n'a pas été en conflit avec nos programmes de formation non plus. D'accord? Donc, il y a chaque formateur, il peut améliorer ou bien il peut définir individuellement son programme fonction de formation, fonction de programmes et de dossiers d'homologation et de programmes légaux en Tunisie. Donc, il n'y a pas une contradiction quand même. On n'a pas censé ça, on a plutôt, c'était vraiment très motivant. À chaque fois qu'on introduit un autre moyen pédagogique ou un autre matériel pédagogique, ça incite les gens à c'est raccrocher beaucoup plus vers l'apprentissage. Donc, comme tout changement, donc, il y a des hauts, il y a des bas quand même, hein, mais on s'améliore au fil des années, au fil de temps, on est en train de s'améliorer petit à petit. Hein. Donc, en bref, pour conclure, c'est que Soldamatic ou bien ce type de réalité augmentée ou de simulateur de soudage ou la formation avec ces modes d'apprentissage n'a pas de conflit avec la réalité en formation classique ou bien en formation courante et en formation légale aussi. Hein. C'est tout à fait légal, il n'y a pas de contradiction.
Thank you, Mohammed. Okay. I think what you explained might be partly an answer to one of the questions in the chat as well. Like, what is the position of authorities with creative and open methods of learning, where you can anticipate or you cannot always anticipate what the learning outcome will be? I think in your case, it's different because you mentioned already, like the program of Soldamatic is very similar to the program you already had. And also for welding, this could be a benefit because programs, I think, across the world are quite similar. I think it's an interesting question also to discuss later on, how this works for other innovative practices, because after this plenary session, we will still have time for more discussion in breakout rooms for the participants in Zoom. And I think it also always depends on how the program is incorporated. Like Sofia mentioned, they have discussions within the schools. What is possible is the small project is part even of the examination graduation project or other possibilities. So it will be interesting to discuss this and to see whether directions, regulations could be barriers or whether there are challenges to implement these practices, but also how can we capture the learning outcomes of these practices and how do they relate to more formal qualifications and curricula. To end this plenary part, I found the cases very inspiring. I think, yes, if we want to implement more of them, we have to overcome challenges, but these practices show it is possible. We will have to discuss issues like how does it relate to the formal qualifications? What kind of learning outcomes are we covering? How do we link it to the programs? But I got really inspired by these cases. I hope all of you as well. And for the end, we will continue after the coffee break in Zoom. But for now, I would like to ask Daria to close this plenary part of this session.
Yes, thank you, Jolien, and thanks to all speakers. Like Jolien just said, we are about to close the stream on the social media platforms, but before it's closed, we want to know what you thought of these first part of the discussion about new forms of learning. For those who are on Zoom, I kindly ask you all to please switch on your camera and give your thumbs up if you are happy with it. And we all hope that we will have a number of thumbs up. And for those who are following on social media, please click on Mentimeter link, as now you're getting very experienced to do, and please rate this session and let us know out of 5 scores if you liked it or not. We hope you do. For the time being, we see that it's pretty well rated, and this is a very good inspiration for us to keep on doing our work, and the feedback will be guiding us for improvements in the future. So what happens now? It's 2:40 Central European Summer Time. For those who are on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Zoom, for Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, the conversations end now, but it will continue on other platforms. And I invite you to stay for 3 more minutes for having a look at a video which would explain what will come next on the conference, the big ETF conference, which will last until this Friday. And for those who are following on Zoom, we have a few minutes for a coffee, for some stretching. I invite you to have a look at the video as well, and then we'll see each other again at 2:50 Central European Summer Time for discussions into breakout rooms. So I see that the session is very well rated. We have a wide majority on 4 and 5. Thank you so much. Let's continue the discussion. Enjoy your coffee break, enjoy the video, and for the Zoomers, see you later. For all the others, thank you so much for having been with us, and goodbye.
Thank you, and also thank you to all speakers for your contributions in this first part of the session.
Merci.